Okay. Welcome back to Wednesday Evening Encore. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Christopher D. Thomas. When everyone shouts sell, she listens to a promise. Everyone else is going to be shouting about a sale. And that sale, we're in the fourth quarter of the year. Can you believe that? October. It just seemed like it was turning 2025. These years are going by quick. So, we're going to talk about Black Friday proof, how to own a promise before the noise starts. Everyone else is going to be shouting sell, 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 but we're going to help you to reshape your messaging so that it's a promise to your client, and your client's not going to worry about if you're running a sale or not. Actually, they're going to purchase before sales even start. So they're going to purchase before Black Friday even starts. So that is what our episode is going to be about on this particular episode this evening of Wednesday Evening Encore. When everyone when everyone shouts sell, she's going to listen to a promise. So now that we've entered into October, right? Coming in November, and maybe even sooner, your social media feed is going to turn into a flea market. People are going to be yelling coupons. They're going to be turning coupon cartwheels. Timers are going to be screaming, going off, saying your time is almost up. Everyone is going to be shouting 90% off. Yet your customer, whether if it's male or female, the customer that you want are going to scroll right past. And here's the question for you. If discounts vanish tomorrow, will your brand still sell? If discounts vanish tomorrow, would your brand still sell? And so this episode of Wednesday Evening Encore, I'll show you how to become Black Friday proof by owning one promise so clearly that your client is going to pause, breathe, and thinks, finally, someone gets what I actually want. Because think about the Black Friday deals. Is it truly what people really want, or is it simply to get you into the door so they can snag you with something else? Which is selfish, right? So let's reshape that. Let's reframe that to give your client what they actually are looking for. And they're not looking for a discount. They're not looking for a coupon, right? So if you've ever whispered, my work is worth more than a coupon, then you're in the right room of this particular episode of Wednesday Evening Encore. So here's the pain point. You're drowning in other people's promos. You're excellent. You're brilliant. Yet your DMs are polite and your sales card is empty. Your prices, you lower your prices to be competitive. But what are you doing to train your buyers? But what you're doing is training your buyers to wait to purchase from you when you mark down. Those of you who teach, your content teaches a lot. Yet your competitors translate your outcomes into one claim, and that takes the sale. So your competitors are learning to do differently what you're doing. And so guess what though? You don't have a pricing problem. You have a promise problem. And when your promise is ownable, when your promise is one that your clients can own, you will stop chasing to get their attention, and you will start earning their preference. They're going to begin to preference you, and you're not going to have to chase their attention. So what I want you to do is I want you to save and share this live. You're going to want to save it because we're going to show you how to rewrite your homepage, your headlines, and you're going to do this tomorrow morning, or some of you may even start doing it tonight. So you're going to want to definitely save this live. All right. So here's the problem. Your message describes your process, not her desired state. Have you ever tuned in to someone and someone tells you, talks to you about, okay, you get this is included, that is included. You get so much of my time. You know, we use this particular process, we use this particular framework, and you're not hearing where you want to be. Remember, the brain buys the bridge, not the planks. The brain buys the bridge and not the planks. The brain is going to buy the pathway to get where they see themselves, their particular outcome. And when you're describing your process, all that does, it blends in into that pre-Black Friday noise. And you know, who knows, this year, I mean, things have been so crazy this 2025 that deals and noise of Black Friday are probably going to start earlier than the normal date. And I predict that we will start seeing Black Friday deals sometime in the early part of early to mid October. And that's my prediction. So noise, and we're surrounded by noise, whether if it's the media or if it's our you know our when I say noise, means it's a lot coming at us. I'm not saying that. Sometimes we could think about noise as being unwanted noise. We're just when I use the word noise, it could mean anything that's trying to get your attention. So that's how we're gonna define noise for the sake of this particular episode. Noise can be sales, noise can be work deadlines, noise can be obligations of our family, noise can be, you know, taking the kids to soccer practice, taking the kids to uh, uh, um, school, taking the kids to, you know, to get to the doctor's appointment. You know, so we're talking about, you know, anything that's trying to get our attention. And what happens is when additional noise comes in, meaning noise that's trying to throw you off balance, that noise that we don't want to hear, our clients begin to feel unsafe because they're already crowded with a lot of noise, meaning things that are looking to get their attention. And so when your client detects that, where your client can't detect that they can see a credible path to relief, then what they do is they put everything on hold. They postpone everything. Have you done that? You remember a couple weeks ago, I used the phrase nice tax. Nice tax. We spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. And that's what's happening. Over delivering to justify underpricing. And so that is what is happening. Now, here's the solution to that. The solution to that, which we'll do a deeper dive, is to claim one ownable promise and while you're marketing to protect it. So you'll sell at normal volume before Black Friday, yet we're going to help you to be able to do is to sell that at premium during Black Friday because your client is being promised is going to buy the promise and not the price. So they're looking at where they want to be. Now, it's not to say that we're going to overprice our product or service, right? And so as long as there's value, with it, and depending on the overall outcome, then of course you're going to price it accordingly. So we're going to assume that you've already done your research, you've already done your due diligence, and and you're pricing the right way, where you're not going to have to worry about giving any particular discount. So we're going to assume that that part is done, okay, for the sake of time and for the sake of this particular episode. So I'm going to use a metaphor of a lighthouse. The lighthouse versus a megaphone. Many of you have either read stories or seen movies where there is a lighthouse. Lighthouse has one light that's beaming and it's up high so everyone can actually see it. It doesn't beg for attention. Unlike a megaphone, you put that thing up and it's loud, it's overwhelming, it's boisterous. It gets people to start to panicking, and you're trying very hard using that to get people's attention. And when we get into the noise of Black Friday, many people will start using the megaphone. And instead, this particular episode is going to show you how, we're going to talk about what, when, why, what you can expect when you reframe yourself to be a lighthouse. A lighthouse, giving people a promise and hope as far as what you are providing, and they're not going to be worried about pricing. So as we mentioned, most brands are acting like megaphones, and especially right around Black Friday, like I mentioned, loud, exhausting, forgettable. People will hear it and then they forget because they're like, oh, let me get away. So, excuse me, market resilient brands like yours, market resilient brands like yours that act like a lighthouse have only one steady beam of light. It's in the same direction and it has no panic. People are actually seeking out when they see that lighthouse, they say, they feel comfort, they feel relief because they know that they're at safety. They know what that lighthouse is actually there for. And so that beam of light is promise. And that is what you want to be to your particular clients, is a promise, is that beam of light. So shoppers are going to come to you to orient and not to bargain. So there's a framework that's called the P.R.O.M.I.S.E, P.R.O.M.I.S.E, the Promise framework. It's a system that I'm going to show you how to use this and what to do, when to do it, why to do it, and when you use this framework, what you can expect. Okay. So, and the framework is called Promise, P.R.O.M.I.S.E. All right. So the P is for pinpoint the desired state. Now, when you pinpoint the desired state, that is, you're going to name the felt outcome in your client's own words, like, right, in their own words. And so that could look like, uh, um, premium yeses in 14 days with no ads. That could be what they want to see in their outcome in their own words. So pinpoint the desired state. Now, why does that work? Or why do that? Why inject that? It's because the brain buys relief first and price second. The brain buys relief first, price second. Now, when you use the P in Promise framework, which is pinpoint the desired state, you're going to be able to expect your headlines, your messaging to pull in more DMs and more messages to your through your social media, maybe through your advertising campaigns, your call to actions, and not just likes. Now, the R in the Promise framework is reduce to one claim. So a lot of times what happens is that we overwhelm people with all of these claims. And all you need is one good claim. One good claim, one sentence, one measurement, one constraint. Right? And when do you want to do that? You want to do that well before the whole Black Friday chatter starts. You want to start doing that as early as tomorrow. Because remember, I'm predicting that the Black Friday chatter is going to get very noisy very soon because of the way that the world is the predicament that the world is in currently. All right. So why do you do that? Well, one single claim creates a subconscious safety. Now, when we overdo things, we make things complex. And when things are complex, it feels risky. So that's why that work. You want your client to feel safe. You don't want to complex everything. Now, when you do that, you're going to be able to expect a higher recall. People are going to recall what you said, and your phrase will get repeated back to you. And if not repeated back to you, it'll get repeated to others. And that's where the good verbal referrals happen about from an experience standpoint. So that's what triggers that. The O in the Promise framework is own a specific constraint. Own a specific constraint. Now, this is where you're going to add what we're going to call a credible limiter. So you got some constraints could be time based, some could be budget based, some could be energy based. You're going to reflect on things that people are saying, with the schedule that I already have. So that's something specific, a constraint that they have that you're going to give them some relief of that, and they don't have to worry about it. That's giving them relief. And remember, all of us have some type of constraints, so because in our brains, that's what holds us back and taking many actions, because we start thinking about the time that we got to put into something. We want to go the way of least resistance. And that's simply the way that the brain operates. And so when we do that, we're going to signal some well, as we mentioned, why does that work is because constraints signals engineering. And what happens is that when we think about engineering, we think about lots of work, lots of time, something that can't be done easily or simple. And it's not going to move the way that we hope or need it to move. Now, when we own a specific constraint, the O in this Promise framework, we can expect better fits, and with clients who we attract. And then also we can expect fewer people who are just testing things out, people who are just kicking the tires, as they say. The M in the Promise framework means map proof to the claim. Map, M-A-P, map proof to the claim. Now, this is where your client stories are going to mirror the claims. It could look like um, before and after, without the dread. It could be a statement such as that: before and after, without the dread. That gives a person comfort in what it is that they're seeing and what they're going after. You're going to map the proof to the claim. Now, you're going to want to do that, map the proof to the claim weekly before Black Friday. And when you map the proof to the claim, you're going to want to pin that particular claim on your Facebook page, on your um, Instagram page. I think TikTok has, you can pin. You can't pin on LinkedIn at this particular point, I don't believe. However, you want to pin that because that's what people, when they visit your profile, they're going to look at what's being pinned there. So you're going to want to publish weekly until Black Friday and pin only one. All right, pin only one. We want to keep it simple. Now, why do you do that? Proof reduces cortisol. And what happens is that when that is reduced, your clients begin to lean in. And those of you who are good at reading body language, you know that when a person starts to lean in when they're listening to you, you got them. You got them. They feel comfortable. Now, so that is what happened. And so when you do that, you can expect shorter calls because people begin to get it. It makes sense. It's not cloudy. You're not yelling. It's very, very clear. And and you're going to get clearer yeses and clearer nos. And no's can also be your friend because it depends on how you frame everything. For example, if you have someone who is, let's say, under some type of stress or anxiety, and you may frame a message for them, is for such as, you know, would you add more blank, 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 blank to your life in to add on what the way that you currently are? Someone will immediately say no. So we can use a no in a way that benefits us when we are creating some type of messaging, when we're creating some body for our website, when we're creating videos, when we're creating some captions, when we're creating some type of sales copy. Because when people are really listening and tuning in to you, you can use both yes and no to your benefit. All right. The I in the promise framework is insulate the identity. You're going to want to tie that one promise that we spoke about to who she wants to become, who your client wants to become. For example, an example sentence of that could be from overlooked expert to first call choice, meaning someone who's been overlooked for a long time. Are you looking to get through that, get over that, and you want to be the first one that they call? You want to tie that promise into who your client wants to become. Now, you're going to want to use the I in the promise framework in your captions, in your emails, in your sales copy, in your call to actions. You're going to want to use it and inject it into almost everything that you may create in your business. So, why do you insulate the identity? Well, most women are going to buy identity upgrades that protect their dignity. And so those are things that we want to keep in mind when we are insulating the identity, of things. Uh, I'm going to. I had a an epiphany moment, and it's once it was brought to my attention, I was like, wow, you know, it's interesting about how different men and women are, and yet not stepping into a woman's shoes or living the life of a woman. And I never will do that. However, it can be a benefit. It can be one of where uh, it could be a benefit as a man and a woman because of perspective framework. All right, from a perspective standpoint. However, it was good that that was brought to my attention, and I'm going to talk more about that in the next few days. I've actually planned out how I want to deliver that particular part, and I'm going to actually record that and post that on social media. So, um, the woman buys identity upgrades to protect the dignity. So, when you inject that part of things, you're going to be able to expect a higher premium tolerance, and everything else is going to scale after that. Now, the S in the promise framework is state the safe step. State the safe step. You're going to use, remember, we're talking about making everything simple, making everything clear, making everything beautiful and easy to digest. You're going to create one low friction next step. It could be some type of a wait list, it could be a blueprint, it could be some type of an audit, it could be a checklist or whatever it is, one low friction next step. And when they take that next step, that signifies interest, and that creates or triggers what we call a tripwire. Because when they grab that particular piece of information, it trips that in, when there's when wars were happening, or maybe you've looked at your favorite movie and they'll have a thin piece of wire, right? And so what happens is that when someone trips over that, what happens? A trap either captures them, or something goes off, or it rings a signal or rings a bell. So someone knows, okay, someone has gone through that particular area that you're trying to protect, or to if they're coming into in space, you will be aware. So in the world of marketing and sales, uh, there's a similar term that's called a tripwire, and then you can use something free to give away, and that's, like I said, could be used as a checklist, wait list, blueprint, or some other type of case study that you're giving away. That is going to help to state the safe step. That's going to help your client to feel safe, as they enter into your ecosystem. Now, when do you do that? Um, you're going to do that. You're going to use that with every post, yet with one path only. You don't want to inundate with all these particular, you get this, you get that, you get this, and you get that all in two, because what happens is that causes confusion. And remember, when we cause confusion, people don't take any action. And so you're going to want to do that because you want to cut down decision fatigue. And when people have decision fatigue, they tend not to convert. And so you want to open up one door and get them into the door. That's what's going to invite the motion. One action per viewer. One action per viewer. And the E in the promise framework is enforcing boundaries. Set the scope, set the response time, set your prices all into your message. Let them know what it is. Go ahead and set it. When do you do that? You want to do that. Remember, you want to do that pre-Black Friday. So some of you are going to start tonight into reframing and using this promise framework. Some of you will start, maybe tomorrow. You want to go ahead and put this in place. And you want to pin all of that anytime you get the opportunity to do so. Now, when you enforce the boundaries, you're going to be able to expect your clients to respect you. They're not going to ask for discounts. You're going to have a cleaner delivery, and your margins are going to be extremely steady. Steady, meaning S-T-E-A-D-Y, steady, consistent. And that's what you're going to be able to expect. So the promise framework, again, P-R-O-M-I-S-E. The P, pinpoint the desired state. The R, reduce to one claim. The O is own a specific constraint. The M, map proof to the claim. The I, insulate the identity. The S, state the safe step. And the E is going to be to enforce the boundaries. Excuse me. So if this particular episode is landing with you, what I want you to do is to type in the word voltage, V-O-L-T-A-G-E. The visibility voltage blueprint just released today. It just released today. It just dropped. And with you inject and put it into the chat, voltage, V-O-L-T-A-G-E. I will send you the link so that you can grab your copy of the visibility voltage blueprint. So here's a case study that I want to share with you. We worked with a consultant. Her name is Aria. And Aria, this was around last year. It was a previous year. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. Anyway, Aria is a consultant, and Aria always ran this, 20% off deal right around November. And believe it or not, even though she received good sales, however, there were people who waited all year until November to get that 20% off. Now, just imagine if Aria had have reframed all of that. And that's exactly what we helped Aria to do. We injected the promise framework, the one we just spoke about, into Aria's system. And we rewrote everything. And what ended up happening is that people began to respect her boundary lines. They replied within 48 hours. They didn't rush. They didn't do any rush thoughtful work. She posted one proof. She got 3 DMs to her social media. There were 2 retainers that were booked at full rate. And she sold all of that before Black Friday and never had to touch a coupon. So now, why did it work? Because Aria was able to show one claim plus a constraint plus the proof plus the boundary, which equaled to her client safety and speed. They felt safe. They knew they were going to get it quick. So what, when, why, and to expect. To break this down a little bit further, what to do again, to remind you, is you want to craft one ownable promise using the promise framework. And you're going to align that with your bio, with your banner, with your next post on social media. When do you do that? you're going to do it immediately within the next 24 hours. Some of you will begin to use it tonight, immediately after this particular episode. Remember, noise increases daily. Noise increases daily. And so, with giving the promise and being clear, you're cutting out all of the noise. All right. And depending on what you're doing and what you're selling, as you get closer to Black Friday, it's only going to get noisier. And the goal is to beat the noise, not having to use any discounts, because you're giving a promise and you're not selling discounts, because you know exactly what your client wants to be, because you're selling the bridge and not the planks that make up the bridge. You're selling the outcome, where your client wants to be. That's what they're expecting. And so what you can expect as you do this, as you use this particular system, the P.R.O.M.I.S.E framework, you're going to be able to expect an identity DM. Hey, this is so me. You're going to have fewer questions. That's that nice tax, right? That nice tax. I'm not saying not to be nice, yet the way that we frame things and our messaging, we can be nice and give people what they want and a good promise. Yet the way that we frame things and we in the systems and the framework that we use, we will not attract certain type of clients our way. And so that is the goal of it all. Premium resilience, even during the discount storms, because the discounts are coming. So here are a few power moves. Here are a few power moves that you can inject into your headers, your content, your sales copy. You can use it tonight or tomorrow. It's 3. You're going to have the relief line. The relief line. And why does that work? Because when you couple an outcome with safety, time is the real currency. And that promise framework is that relief line is injected into that promise framework. 2, your boundary line. That's going to be a power move. That's going to be a power move, because that's going to signal that you're competent with and what you do, and is going to remove any hidden anxiety that your client may have. And number 3 is going to be the identity line. That's going to help you to sell your future self. Your future self, and you're not going to be selling your feature list. They're not worried about your list of things that you're going to be selling. You're going to be selling your future self. So remember that Lighthouse versus the Megaphone that we spoke about. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be louder. So let me step back a little bit. Remember, we've been talking about outcomes, and we showed the difference as far as not blending in with the noise. And we use the metaphor of a lighthouse and a megaphone. So a megaphone is going to elevate your voice. It's just going to make you louder. And a lot of times it's not a comfortable loudness. It's overbearing. It's disturbing. It's chaotic. It's nerve-wracking, and it's confusing. You just simply want to, let me close my ears. Let me get away. So we don't want to use a megaphone with our clients. Yet we do want to be as a lighthouse, where that one light, that one beam is going to give person hope. It's going to give them the thought, that's where I need to be. It's going to attract, because they look at that as being the solution, where they want to be. And so your next step is simply going to be a clean next step. Remember that visibility voltage blueprint that I mentioned to you that just released today, Wednesday? You're going to want to download that visibility voltage blueprint right now. It shows you how to turn quiet presence into market megawatts and to wire your promise into content, captions, and also your calls. So type voltage in, and what I'll do is I'll DM you the link, and you could be one of those early downloaders of that particular uh, um, promise and blueprint. And you're going to get something extra inside of that by simply being one of the early ones to take advantage of it. So every day that you delay owning your promise, owning that promise, you're paying that noise tax. You're going to be doing more explaining. You're going to have smaller margins. You're going to have slower months. So every day that you delay owning the promise, you're going to be paying that noise tax. So next Wednesday, the title of that episode is going to be the Waitlist Engineering, how you're going to turn your followers into first dib buyers. So we're going to show you how to convert your audience into first dib buyers, so that your buyers are going to line up before you even launch. So to close out, remember, the goal is to be the lighthouse. Own that one promise. Own that one promise. And when that noise begins to rise, because you have that one promise, your clarity is going to do all the selling. So thank you for tuning in to Wednesday Evening Encore. Remember, follow, share, save, turn on notifications. Those of you who want to grab that visibility voltage blueprint, be one of the early downloaders, comment the word voltage to grab that new blueprint. And remember, what we're doing right now is creating your success. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Have a great one.